Hello and welcome to Business 360. I'm Shireen Bhan. The headlines we're tracking this evening. A volatile day sees the Nifty and the Sensex end 0.25% lower on weekly expiry. FMCG stocks were the big laggards. Financials outperforming the blue chips, the Nifty Bank ending in the green. India's largest bank, State Bank of India, beats estimates in Q4. Asset quality and margins are the best in 8 years. CEO Dinesh Khara says new rules proposed by RBI on higher loan provisioning is fiction and one should wait for it to become a reality. The Indian Banks Association has asked for more time to comply with the proposed rules. ITC meets estimates in Q4, cigarette revenue and volume growth in double digits, FMCG business growth at nearly 20%, hotel revenue has doubled.
They were also working really hard on upskilling India's digital workforce. It's a critical initiative there.
AWS plans to invest nearly $13 billion into its cloud business in India by 2030. The global CEO of Amazon Web Services, Adam Selipsky, says the company wants to democratize generative AI and is making large bets on artificial intelligence. That's an exclusive. The government may cut demand incentives for electric two-wheelers, but considers increasing the overall allocation under the FAME scheme by 75%. No decision yet on extending the scheme beyond March 2024. Sources say a probe into the FAME violations nearing its completion. Subsidies will be disbursed in the next 2 to 3 days. That's CNBC-TV18 exclusive. Bringing international transactions through credit cards under the $250,000 per year remittance limit creates waves. Experts say it will impact both individuals and merchants. KPMG India says card payments done in India to foreign payees will also attract a 20% tax collected at source. Transaction Square says the government will incur extra costs to refund money to those who don't normally fall under the tax net. The Congress top brass chooses Siddaramaiah as the new Karnataka Chief Minister, ending 5 days of a deadlock after the emphatic election win. DK Shivakumar has been named Deputy Chief Minister, will also continue as the state party chief. Kiran Rijiju moved out of the Law Ministry after a 2-year stint marked by frequent run-ins with the judiciary. Is assigned the Earth Sciences Ministry. The Minister of State, Arjun Ram Meghwal, is the new Law Minister, gets independent charge of the portfolio. SP Baghel, also replaced as MOS Law, shifted to the Health Ministry. The Supreme Court upholds laws allowing the traditional bull taming sport Jallikattu and Balkat races in Tamil Nadu and Karnataka. Also adds the Jallikattu issue was debatable, calls on lawmakers to decide on the matter. On to the day's trading action. We saw a volatile day today. The markets ending in the red on weekly expiry day. The Nifty and the Sensex fell 0.25%, with FMCG stocks being the big drags. Financial did outperform, with the Nifty Bank ending mildly in the green. Prashant is standing by to take us through the market action. Prashant.
Well, it was a quiet day in a way. The market ended lower at the low point of the day, but it was a slow burn. We made a high, which was initially in the first 30-40 minutes of trade, and after that, the market just kept breaking down, but in a very slow, well-behaved fashion, quiet. I think that's a sense one got watching the market all day. A Bank Nifty that ended higher, and I'll tell you and explain with stocks which did well in a bit from now. But losses first, since the markets on the Nifty were lower. SBI and ITC numbers were decent. SBI actually was very good. But the fact is, some of it was pre-positioned, and stocks did sell off after the numbers came out. Divi's and Adani Ports were some of the other losers. On the gaining side, it was financials as well. Bajaj Finance, Kotak and ICICI Bank. But, losers outweighed gainers. Market breadth was negative. So let me start with the losses. And a lot of them are just pure earnings-related cuts. GNFC and GAIL, JK Tyre, 3 numbers there. And stocks reacting. Divi's Laboratories, Adani Total has been selling off. MTAR, Tech, Godrej Properties, Thermax were decent numbers, but stock was lower. GSFC, Metropolis, and Endurance, which also had reported numbers. There were gainers as well. Burger King, which is restaurants brand Asia, Jindal Saw, Jindal Stainless were big gainers. Honeywell reported good numbers. That reacted in a positive way. Devyani, a similar story there. Shakti Pumps, Indigo Paints, and a bunch more. It's not really clear what the market wants to do. It's been pulling back all week. Global cues will be important. The dollar is rising, and you don't want the dollar up. You want the dollar lower. And some of these important levels of the Nifty, especially the 20-day moving average, will be very much in focus as we come back and trade the last day of this week. Back to you.
All right, Prashant, many thanks for joining us. On to the commodity market action. Crude prices remaining steady there after gaining overnight on optimism over oil demand, as well as signs of a breakthrough in the U.S. debt ceiling talks. Meanwhile, gold prices have inched lower as the dollar held firm over the possibility of the U.S. debt ceiling talks resolving. That has reduced the metal's safe haven appeal today. State Bank of India reporting robust growth in Q4, beating estimates across all parameters. Net profit up 83%, net interest margin rose nearly 30%. The bank's asset quality and loan growth has improved sequentially. Abhishek Kothari standing by with the details. Abhishek, take us through the report card for SBI this quarter.
It's been a fantastic quarter for State Bank of India. Take a look at the deposit growth. On a sequential basis, it's at 5%, which is perhaps the best in last 4 quarters and the second best that you are seeing in last 11 quarters. Net interest margin, despite the strong deposit growth, is the best in last 8 years, which has helped the return ratios being robustly on the higher side and one of the best in last 8 years. So the net interest margin has come in at 3.6% when compared to 3.5% in the previous quarter. ROA has improved by 15 basis points to 1.23%, and for the fiscal year ending, the ROE has improved to 19.4% when compared to 18.6% that they had for the December results. Gross NPA ratio and net NPA ratio are one of the best that you are seeing in last 8 years or even more. Gross NPA ratio is down to about 2.78% and net NPA ratio is down to about 0.67%. Now, credit cost for a quarter on an annualized basis is perhaps the lowest ever that they have recorded at just 16 basis point. Restructured book that continues to decline at 0.74% is the lowest in last 7 quarters. On the loan growth, if you take a look at the breakup, corporate loan growth is pretty strong at 5.9% quarter on quarter and about 12.5% YOY. Retail loan growth is also robust at 17.5% YOY and about 5% sequentially. On the flip side, the cost to income ratio that's increased a bit and is on the higher side in last couple of quarters. However, in terms of P&L, both the NI and PAT is a beat on our poll. Back to you.
All right, Abhishek, many thanks for joining us. SBI Chief Dinesh Khara spoke about RBI's proposed expected credit loss rules that are supposed to kick in from 2025. The proposed rule will mean higher provisioning for banks, and the Indian Banks Association has asked for more time to comply with the norms. The SBI chief has termed the proposed rules as, I quote, as fiction, adding that one should wait for them to become a reality.
First and foremost, ECL as of now is a fiction, and if at all it becomes a reality, we are very well equipped to deal with without having any impact on our balance sheet. We have always followed the principle to insulate the balance sheet fully, and our balance sheet is completely insulated from any future potential events also.
Well, that is the SBI chief. On to ITC. The numbers in line with the estimates. FMCG revenue has grown more than 19%, while margins have come in at the highest reported by the company. Cigarette volume growth also in line with estimates. Agriculture revenue declined 18%. Mangalam standing by now to wrap up the ITC numbers for us. Take us to the report card, Mangalam.
Well, these are largely in-line set of numbers coming in from the cigarette business for ITC this time around. I'm just looking at the cigarette revenue growth that's coming at around 14%. The street was working with a number around 15-odd%. So this means that the volume growth for the company has been around 11 to 12%. Again, largely in line with expectations of 12 to 13%. The cigarette operational performance has seen an improvement about 14% year on year. Again, in line with expectations of 15 to 16%. What really has stood out this time around from an ITC number standpoint, of course, hotels has grown in triple digits as against a 40 to 50% growth expectation. But that, again, does not surprise the street as much given the sort of numbers that we've seen from Indian Hotels and Lemon Tree. The star of the numbers this time around for me is the FMCG business that has shown a revenue growth of 19%. And for the first time ever, the FMCG EBIT has reported a double-digit margin. So that's a margin of around 10.2%. That's a big positive. So this is something that we'll have to watch out for. ITC is finally moving away from the shadows of the tobacco business and coming onto its own in the FMCG pack. So that really, is something that my key takeaway from these numbers would be. Volume growth, nothing really to worry about. The agri business has seen a decline of about 18 odd percent. Again, the street was working with a decline of around mid-teens, largely because of a high base. And, the wheat export has been banned this time around as well. So wheat exports were there in the base quarter. The other businesses of the company, the paperboards business has shown some sort of moderation. But while on a reported basis, just the P&L has been largely in line with expectations. The cigarette volumes in line with expectations. The FMCG really stands out, with the hotel business reporting a near doubling of revenues on a favorable base. Let's see whether that continues or not.
Okay, Mangalam, many thanks. Our big newsmaker this evening. Amazon plans to invest nearly $13 billion into its cloud business in India by 2030. Amazon Web Services is doubling down on its India bet, and the global CEO of AWS believes India is, and I quote, absolutely critical to the company's growth strategy. The move comes at a time when Amazon has scaled down some of its services. It has shut down its online learning platform, food delivery and wholesale distribution businesses. Speaking exclusively to CNBC-TV18, AWS CEO Adam Silipsky said there is tremendous optimism about the cloud business growth in India. He also spoke about Amazon's big bet on artificial intelligence and the company's plans to democratize generative AI.
I'm very pleased to announce today that AWS plans to invest an additional $12.7 billion in our local cloud infrastructure in India by 2030. So on top of the existing investment, we'll be investing another 12.7 for a total of $16.4 billion by the year 2030. 2030. And finally, I'll just say we're also working really hard on upskilling India's digital workforce. It's a critical initiative. There's going to be a big lack of cloud skills, a big gap between what's needed and the available workforce over the coming years. And we're trying to help close that gap.
Which are the sectors that you believe are the most vulnerable in terms of the challenges that we're seeing today? Where do you believe the spends are being impacted the most?
Well, I think you've seen some amount of this happening across industries. I wouldn't say it's any one country. I wouldn't say it's any one sector. And, again, I don't think there's any real new news here in terms of the very unusual economy and number of surprises the world has had the past few years. Ranging from the pandemic to, of course, all of the impacts of the war in Ukraine and the impact that's had. But we still see tremendous signs of optimism. So just to stick with financial services, I was very recently in India, as I mentioned, and spent time with many of the largest banks there. And just one exciting example is Axis Bank. So, of course, Axis is the third largest private sector bank in India. And they've selected AWS as their primary cloud provider. And they're going to work with us to accelerate their digital transformation. And in fact, the bank plans to migrate 70% of their total workloads to the cloud over the next 2 years.
Now, how much of a bet are you willing to make on AI, and how large of a focus is that likely to be? Your competitor, Microsoft, for instance, the CFO is talking about AI service tools adding about 1 percentage point to revenue, as well as revenues in Q2. Now, what could this typically mean for AWS going forward? How large of an AI bet are you willing to take?
We're making extremely large bets in AI and in machine learning in general. Amazon has actually been a leader in machine learning and AI for literally decades. If you go back to the late 1990s, personalization on the AWS retail website is really artificial intelligence. And in 2017, we launched SageMaker, which is an AWS machine learning platform that has over 100,000 AWS customers and is the leading machine learning platform in the world. We have a lot of experience. We've been investing in AI for years. There are foundation models, LLMs, as folks are calling these large language models, in operation today inside of Amazon, powering Alexa, powering search on the retail site. But Amazon intends to double down, triple down on all of these investments and to continue to really be a leader in generative AI. We do think that virtually every application that people see, that people interact with, will be transformed in some way by generative AI. And we know it's really important for our customers that we be the provider of those solutions to them. So we've actually recently announced a bunch of innovations already across the generative AI space. One of the biggest is Amazon Bedrock, which is a new, easy way to scale and build enterprise-ready generative AI applications. So the idea here is that we're trying, just like AWS has tried to democratize IT for over 17 years, we're going to democratize generative AI.
And you can catch that full interview with AWS's CEO Adam Selipsky at 7:30 p.m. and 9:30 p.m. tonight, right here on CNBC-TV18. Kiren Rijiju has been removed as the Union Law Minister after a tumultuous two-year stint. This was marked by his frequent run-ins with the judiciary on several issues. The portfolio of earth sciences has been assigned to him instead of law. Now, the Minister of State, Arjun Ram Meghwal, has been assigned independent charge of Law Ministry. In addition to his existing portfolios, Meghwal also serves as the MOS for two ministries, Parliamentary Affairs and Culture. SP Baghel has also been replaced as MOS Law. He's been shifted to the Health Ministry, so there has been a complete purge as far as the Law Ministry is concerned. The Supreme Court has upheld laws allowing Jallikattu, Kambala and bull cart racing in the states of Tamil Nadu, Karnataka and Maharashtra. The Supreme Court today upheld the constitutional validity of amendments made to the central law against cruelty to animals by these states. However, the court said it would not get into the issue of whether Jallikattu is an integral part of the Tamil culture, leaving the matter to lawmakers. The United States Food and Drug Administration has begun inspecting Torrent Farmers' manufacturing facility at Dahej in Gujarat. Sources say the inspection that began earlier this week is a routine examination of manufacturing practices. The company has not responded to CNBC-TV18's query as of yet. Sticking with pharma, Pfizer has advised doctors in India to stop using 3 of its life-saving antibiotics for hospitalized patients, especially those in intensive care units. The company said that deviations have been observed in the manufacturing of these drugs. The manufacturer is currently investigating the matter, according to Pfizer. The Union government's investigation against 17 EV companies for alleged violation of the FAME scheme is nearing completion. Now, the government is likely to start releasing subsidies for those companies that were not found guilty of any violation. Further, we learn from sources that the government is likely to reduce the demand incentives for electric two-wheelers from 40%. It's likely to be cut down to 15%. That's a drastic cut. Parikshit is standing by with more details on this story. Parikshit.
Yes, the investigation being carried out by the Ministry of Heavy Industries against 17 EV companies for violations of FAME criteria is nearing completion. We're learning from our sources that subsidies will soon start getting dispersed, possibly in the next 2 to 3 days. Approximately 1,100 crores had been held back by the Ministry of Heavy Industries over the last 1 year for these 17 players because of various violations. With the probe now getting over, the government will start disbursing subsidies to players against whom no violation has been found. But against companies like Hero Electric and Okinawa, where there has been a violation of localization criteria, the subsidy will continue to be on hold. At the same time, there have been stakeholder consultations with the Ministry of Heavy Industries on subsidy support for electric two-wheelers under the FAME2 scheme. 2,000 crores, which had been allotted for electric two-wheelers, is nearing exhaustion, and the industry is seeking additional support under the 10,000 crore allocation. We believe that the government could soon allot an additional 1,500 crores, but with a reduced subsidy allocation per vehicle. So from the current 40% of the vehicle cost of 15,000 rupees per kilowatt hour, the subsidy support per vehicle could come down to 10,000 rupees per kilowatt hour, or 15% of the vehicle cost. Let's see what happens in the days to come. A final decision is awaited.
All right, Parikshit, many thanks for joining us. We will head into a short break, but up next, the Congress top brass chooses Siddaramaiah as the new Karnataka Chief Minister, ending 5 days of the deadlock after an emphatic election win. That and more when we return. The union government's move to bring international transactions through credit cards under the $250,000 annual remittance limit has created waves. Experts believe that this will impact both individuals and merchants. Surbi standing by to take us through what this really means. Surbi, a lot of backlash, at least on social media. You've been speaking with experts. What does this mean for you and me?
Well, yes, absolutely. This has been the big change. Just one amendment and the omission of one line, one Rule 7 in the Foreign Exchange Management Act has led to this entire furor. Well, it's done. The law has been amended. So here's how things are going to work. The liberalized remittance scheme allows resident Indians to remit up to 250,000 USD in one financial year. Up until now, credit card spends were not part of this 250,000 limit. Now they will be. So far, so good. And a lot of experts point out that the letter and spirit of the change law is absolutely fine, that there should be no circumvention of this LRS limit. However, why, the regular public at large, you and me, a lot of us are sort of up in arms is because of the TCS provision, the tax collected at source. Remember, TCS was hiked from 5% to 20% in budget this year. So that's also not new news, so to speak. However, it's become very clear in the last 24 hours that this 20% TCS will now apply to each and every credit card transaction, whether it's happening from here, India, or whether it's happening in an overseas jurisdiction, if there is any purchase of goods or services that is being made via that credit card. So it's raising quite a few questions in terms of the operational modalities. Let me actually run you through them. We've been talking to a lot of experts to try and get some answers. The first thing people wanted to know was that will this TCS also apply to preloaded Forex cards? A lot of people use these Forex cards when they're going out for their overseas travel. The answer to this is yes. Not just international credit cards, but even Forex cards will have to look at this 20% TCS provision. Now, will all online payments made via foreign currency attract this TCS? The answer is yes. So if you want to buy, let's say, some US goods on Amazon in USD, in dollars, 20% TCS will apply. Let's say you want to subscribe to an overseas magazine or publication for which you will pay in, let's say, pounds or euros. Again, 20% TCS will apply, even though you're sitting right here in India and making that transaction. The third question that people were asking was what happens to my YouTube subscription, my Netflix subscription. Now, here the interpretation is that, things should not change, no TCS. Why? Because we pay for these subscriptions in Indian rupees. Your Netflix at $2.99 or whatever it is, $4.99 a month, that's Indian rupees, so no TCS issues over there. Number 4, and this is the real big one, how will financial institutions keep a track of individual LRS limits? And this is something to which there are no clear answers, because if I'm using 5 different credit cards, issued by 5 different banks, then how will the banks know if I have breached my limit of 250,000? The last question is, okay, there's some solace that this 20% tax can come back to you via refund. So what is the timeline? How do you get that refund? This is a difficult and painful one. The timelines will be as long as 2 years, because you have to wait for the end of the fiscal, file an income tax return, and then claim refund, which effectively means a wait of anywhere between 20 to 24 odd months.
There will be a TCS of 20%, which was earlier actually 5%. And of course, on the credit card, nobody was, tracking that. But now, effective 1st July, you swipe your credit card when you are actually overseas or even sitting in India. If you do that, then obviously it gets, it becomes part of $250,000 of limit. It's a big change, not just for all of us, but even for the merchant or for the credit card issuers.
Well, that is a big change, and as I said, it's evoked a lot of reaction online from regular consumers as well as businesses, and the spirit certainly seems to be in contrary to the ease of doing business as well as the ease of living. Now, the suspense over the next Karnataka Chief Minister is over. After hectic deliberations that went on for 4 days, the Congress party has chosen Siddaramaiah to be the next Chief Minister, and DK Shivkumar will be the Deputy Chief Minister. Shivkumar will also continue as the state party chief. Both leaders staked their claims to the top post after Congress's emphatic win in the assembly elections. The swearing-in is expected to be held on the 20th of May. Siddaramaiah tweeted that they will always join hands to protect the interests of Kannadigas. He wrote that the Congress party will work as a family to provide a transparent and corruption-free government.
Everything is well. Everything will be well, is going to be well. We had made a one-line resolution that whatever the High Command will take a decision, we'll abide by it. Ultimately, Rahulji called me and said, you all have to work together. Congress President Mallikarjun Kharge called us and gave this dikat. We all have accepted whatever the formula has been generated.
DK Shivakumar there saying there is acceptance and there will now be Chief Minister Siddaramaiah and Deputy Chief Minister DK Shivakumar. World leaders have begun to arrive in Japan's Hiroshima for the G7 meet. The summit is set to be dominated largely by the Russia-Ukraine war as well as concerns around China. US President Joe Biden landing in Japan for a truncated Asia visit. Now, the White House is locked in negotiations with Republicans over raising the debt ceiling before the end of the month. President Biden has cancelled his trip to Australia because of this. UK Prime Minister Rishi Sunak is likely to sign a historic Hiroshima Accord for defence cooperation with Japan when he meets President Kishida. Meanwhile, Prime Minister Modi is also expected to reach Japan tomorrow. He's scheduled to visit Australia and Papua New Guinea. And with that, it is time for us to wrap up this edition of Business 360. Thanks very much for watching. Do stay tuned to CNBC-TV18. The news continues on the other side when we return after this short break.
I'm a